so happy when I told that I will have the honor to be the Toastmaster of the day in our first after Pathway meeting. All online clubs just got on Pathway. And I also now didn't wait anymore with my path, so I finished in December and declared it for an online club because I could now. But we begin Pathway long ago, many of you. And those who know, who will begin now. For me, the guide and the big dam of Pathway is Pat Johnson, who began it 1911, if not earlier, she will tell us, when she just finished to be International Toastmaster President. And with a lot of knowledge and 200 learning masters, they created Pathway for us. So I waited years and years and years to be finished. And finally it was there in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. And then I went there and begin. And now we will hear from her. We begin, have a wonderful keynote. So please welcome very warmly our big, wonderful guest.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, first of all, to be part of Firebirds Collective. I'm not an online type of person. For Toastmasters, I spend my whole workday online because I'm a coach and I coach people around the world. So this is a familiar environment for me, and thank you. It's great to meet Toastmasters around our globe. I want to share with you, because as Julie indicated, I was there at the beginning of Pathways. I had just completed being international president, and we had identified the competencies that we felt had been, when we surveyed people, that they actually told us that they had achieved in the Toastmaster program. And that became the foundation for us to develop the new program. A couple of years prior, as part of our strategic planning at the board level, when I was on the executive committee with Jana Barnhill and Gary Schmidt, both past international presidents, we had started talking about the need to revitalize our education program, because that's all Toastmasters is education. And the fact that our program was over 90 years old and had gone through many metamorphoses, we recognized that when we talked to the public, that our program wasn't very current. So we could change names and we could put more Band-Aids on it to update it, but we felt that the time had come to rebuild or revitalize. So it was fortuitous, I guess, or advantageous to Toastmasters International that this is what I did for work. So I worked in learning and development and ran a team of curriculum designers, facilitators, trainers in the corporate world. And that was also my background, education. So when I was asked to take this on, I jumped at it, not knowing that it was going to take as long as it did and take as many hours and years of our lives, but it was a great adventure. So some of the things that I do when I design curriculum is that I start with a clean slate. And So when we started out, we had about, Toastmasters International went out to our members because we recognized that this was a members program and we wanted members to be involved. We accepted applications for Learning Masters, and we had about 2,500 people worldwide apply to be Learning Masters. That was a very interesting project just to start with, to start and sort that out, till we ended up with about, we started with about 250. And so we started to go to work. When we looked at, excuse me for a moment. When we looked at the makeup for the Learning Masters, we looked at age. So we had people in their 80s. We had people that were 18 years of age. We looked at location around the globe. We looked at education. So we wanted people that were business oriented. We wanted blue collar workers. We wanted people that were business. We wanted academia. We wanted teachers. We wanted curriculum designers, and also IT experts. We felt that all of those would be very valuable in input into the design of the curriculum, because we knew it was going to be online, and those IT people would really help us determine, could this go and what would it look like if we were putting it online. Interestingly enough, I had just gone through a project in the corporation where I was working to buy and build a learning management system, which is now our base camp. And so I had experience in that as well. So I was grateful for that parallelism that ran along there. So after we got the 250 Learning Masters around the world, we started building curriculum, and we had a lot of interesting discussions. And some of you were Learning Masters. How many of you were Learning Masters? Raise your hand. Anybody on Learning Master team? Okay. So what we did at the very beginning is I was the manager, so, and with the agreement of World Headquarters, I basically tore everything down. We knew that we couldn't cut and paste with Toastmasters and our traditional program, so we tore it down to nothing. And we said, if we're building a new structure, we've got to set the corner posts, and let's build a brand new building. We're not going to just put a new kitchen in and renovate. So we're going to start from the ground up and even change the footprint. So there were a few things that had to absolutely stay in place. The first one was that was absolutely critical in terms of identifying this as Toastmasters. There was 4 things. First of all, that we would remain a club environment. So we would be peer led, that there would not be somebody who gave a pass or a fail, that there would not be somebody who was in charge. It would not be instructor led. So it's going to be experiential, just as it is now. It was going to be peer evaluation. We would have mentoring program, and it would be self-paced program in a club environment. So those were the sacred tenets to the curriculum that we were going to build. And we had let go of all the designations. We weren't going to try and build a curriculum that would fit into existing designations. And not very long down that road, we soon heard outcries that DTM was sacred. And so we took the DTM, the Distinguished Toastmaster designation, and we put it in a vault and locked it up and kept it safe, and said somewhere along the line, we have to figure out how we get to a DTM at the end of the day when we build the curriculum. So those are the cornerstones that we built. We also, at the very beginning, looked at who was our audience because we had to build the curriculum for the audience. We identified that there were new business people and graduates from university, college, school that came in our door. The second group was mid-career people who are often sent that need some speaking skills, some meeting skills, perhaps some feedback for their employees that were often sent from their business place of work. There were people that were retired who'd left the active workforce place that wanted to stay mentally active and socially engaged. We have the professional speaker that walks in our door that is looking for evaluation, not necessarily thinking that they need to learn how to speak, but really wanting evaluation. And the fifth group, the large group, was the English as second, third, fourth, fifth language. And so those are the people that we identified would be our target market if Toastmasters continued as it was. So when we looked at developing any kind of the curriculum, like a module, etc., we looked at who does it fit in our target market, and does it fit within those realms of experiential, self-paced, peer evaluation, etc. So that was how we started. We held conference calls, so material was sent out to the learning masters. We would review things, and then we would have conference calls. I remember many mornings getting online very early and spending an hour with 100 people or 70 people, and then hanging up and dialing another number and getting online with another 100 people. And it was pretty intense in those days. We had a number of philosophical discussions. While we recognized that we were looking at a brand new product for Toastmasters, we also knew that Toastmasters is only an education organization. The only thing we have to sell in the marketplace is our education program. We have nothing else to sell. Without the education program in Toastmasters, Toastmasters doesn't exist. We're out of business. So we knew that on the outset that we had some timelines that were fairly aggressive. What I knew from my professional experience is that curriculum development almost always takes twice as long as people think it will. And we, as has been said over and over again in Toastmasters, is that we're going to do it right. And we knew the importance of doing it right because of the impact of it being our only product. So we quit worrying about the timelines and kept working to do it right. We had some philosophical discussions, and I'll just touch very briefly on these. We had discussions about pass or fail because people were concerned about the quality of DTMs and people just going through the exercises and checking off the boxes and not being held accountable to the objectives in the projects, not being held to a certain quality. But we knew that then that got down to what kind of a club do you belong to? What is the integrity in the club? So it became really a values discussion. We talked about the need for reflection. And so in some of our projects you'll find, or in the paths, that you're asked to reflect, to write, to journal your experience. We also did pre and post assessment because we get to assess ourselves. And then we arrived at the pre-assessment because of those diverse people that arrive in our doors at our club. And in the traditional program, we've all done the very same thing. We knew that when they walked in the door with pathways, that they would be able to identify their needs through an assessment and be guided with a suggestion for a path to meet their needs. So more Yeah, I think that's kind of the basics of what we looked at in terms of discussion. We also had great debate about evaluations because we knew globally that there were almost to the point of arguments. There was debate, healthy debate about what was the right way to do an evaluation. And through that in-depth discussion with Learning Masters, we came upon the idea of building tutorials. And that's how the whole idea of online tutorials got created, was that whole, the impetus of that discussion around evaluation. And so we said, wow, we could do some videos that would demonstrate ways of doing evaluation. As we got further into the projects and the elements of design, we also recognized that different learning styles and people needed more detail. And therefore, we started adding those back pages of information for those people that love more information. So a lot of the pathways grew organically from many of the Learning Masters who had knowledge in design and working with curriculum, as well as delivery. And Learning Masters were not responsible for the learning management system. Once we developed the curriculum, that was handed over. We also did not name the paths. That was given to someone else for the naming conventions, and the recognition was also done by a different group. So we were basically the people on the ground designing the curriculum. So I know my time's up. Went quickly for me, maybe not for you, but I'm going to open up the floor for question and answers. If anybody has any questions of me, maybe I can add more information.
Amir?
Yeah, Pat, thank you for sharing that journey with us. I'm intrigued by it. I remember when the call for Learning Masters first came out, and I missed the boat. I really was interested in it, and I missed the boat. And then when the call for Pathways guides came out, I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm jumping in. So I met the deadlines for those. But my question is, what learning did you master in this whole experience? What would you say is the top thing that you've learned out of the whole launch of Pathways?
Yeah, thank you, Samir. For me, because this was my professional background in the world that I lived in daily, what I learned in Toastmasters in doing this project was that I was so grateful that we let go of the timeline and that we built it right. And I also learned that everybody has an opinion and you'll never please everyone. I've heard discussion recently about why do we have icebreakers at every path? And I'm going, well, if I'm a brand new member and I start in path 7, do I not do an icebreaker? And if I have a brand new member who starts in path 3, do they not need to do an icebreaker? And how many of us have done CCs ad nausea, and we do icebreakers over and over again? So it's not the name of the project, it's how we personally challenge ourselves to grow when we do it. Like, has anybody given this very same icebreaker over again? Really, Harvey, I don't believe you. You probably rewrote it or changed it.
Yeah, I only did 20 of them.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, so most of us would rewrite and have something different to say in an icebreaker.
Yes. I had given already 6 icebreakers in Pathway, and not one are the same.
The other thing that we discovered...
I am no more the same.
Yeah, thank you for that, Julie. The other thing that we discovered in Icebreaker was it wasn't just about talking about yourself, but maybe your objectives in Toastmasters. I found people in Toastmasters that actually quit before they gave their icebreaker because they refused to talk about themselves and their in a personal manner, and their club said, oh no, you have to tell us about you. Like, they were inflexible around that. So the people quit because they just weren't comfortable sharing their personal life. So I think there's many ways of doing icebreakers, and certainly objectives in your next path of learning would be a great way to do an icebreaker.
So Harvey.
I just wanted to ask Pat about what's your satisfaction with the program overall now?
I'm super satisfied with it. I think we've done an amazing job to launch 10 paths and as much translation as we have. I think that there's no such thing as perfect in the world. And I think that work will continue on pathways. There'll be adaptations, there'll be tweaks. There's certainly 2 paths that are being currently developed, and then a small module on parliamentary procedure already to be added, which we knew would happen. But I'm pleased that we've managed to launch it. There was great trepidation of putting 350,000 Toastmasters on a learning management system, and if we would crash the whole organization down into the ditch. And we haven't done that, so I'm happy.
Right, that's right. And
I would like to ask one question, which many people ask me. Why we have 5 levels, but we cannot see the levels which are later? How was this decided and why?
You know, I don't know the exact answer to that because I wasn't privy to that discussion, but having worked in a learning management system, I would suspect that it's to track the completion of the projects, because if people are opening them up and then backing through them and not doing them and then going back at them, it's probably a registration technicality in the learning management system, which would be our base camp.
Okay, thank you. Lauren?
Yes, thank you, Pat.
Then Belinda. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Pat, so much. It's been great to hear your backstory on this. My question is, if you had your way and you could kind of look forward in the next 10 years, how do you see the evolution of pathways? I mean, is there a body of people that are going to be monitoring the progression of this, the evolution of changing little things and tweaking? Because that's what I like about it, is that I think we've got a little bit of room to move. I'm just wondering, is there a plan for that?
Well, curriculum is part of the responsibility of the board. And so the board of directors, most things are put on a cyclical review in the world of Toastmasters, so board work. And so world headquarters would have a cycle of things that come up for review. And with the expertise that we've built at world headquarters through the building of pathways, because we've certainly acquired more curriculum designers and developers. So I see this as a continuous process there governed by the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Belinda?
Yes, so Pat,
Belinda first and then Linda.
one of the questions that I continually get as a pathways guide in my district is that when people look at the different levels for all of the different paths, it seems to them like it's the same thing. How would you recommend we respond to that?
Well, I don't have a recommendation, but I'll share with you what I do. I tell people that new members start on any path that fits them best. And so every path begins with the basics. And it's like, and then people say, well, why do I have to do the basics? And I say, have you ever known a famous cello player or a pianist or a singer or a football player? We all go back and do the basics. And you have to master the basics. So it's going back to the roots and saying, are we still building a good structure? Are we doing good vocal variety? are we authentic? Are we improving in that area? And so I just use it, the reference back to playing piano or something like that, going back to the basics, practicing the basics. If we were in the gym doing weightlifting and we got into real heavy weights and we lost our form and had nobody spotting and making sure that we were in form, we'd break down.
Right, and I agree for level 1 and 2, but it's the rest of the levels.
Last question from Linda.
I don't have an answer for the other levels.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Linda.
Yes, I have 2 questions. Realistically speaking, how long should it take me to go through my core competency? Realistically speaking, 1. And 2, how are the clubs going to be rated after the pathways goes on, depending on how many members have accomplished their pathway core competency? You know, because now they say, well, they should have at least X number of members that have completed the CL, the Competent Leadership Manual. How is that going to translate now to pathways? But the first question is most important to me because I just started pathways and I hear people that have already finished and I'm just going to deliver my first icebreaker on pathways.
Okay, so first of all, Toastmasters is just like it's always been, it's self-paced. So the perfect time for you is when you get there. And remember that some people in Pathways have been in the program for almost 2 years, right? Or one year, pardon me. So 1 year. So
Okay.
though that's a big difference. District 57, for example, 1 year ago they started. So I've got my icebreaker done, but that's it. And so I think back to just our CC and our CL. It's self-paced program. We go at this pace that it suits us. Some people belong to 5 clubs and they're speaking in them all. Some of them belong to 5 clubs and speak in none of them. So they're all going to arrive at the end spot at a different time. There's no time frame. That's the beauty of Toastmasters.
Yes,
So the
thank you so
requirements
much,
for a distinguished
Pat
club.
and Linda. If you want to listen to me, I have been in 7 clubs and spoke in 10 clubs, and that is how I could finish 4 paths in a year. But it is because I put every time I had on pathway. Otherwise, it could last 3 years. My first CC lasts 3 years. So it depends very much how much time you can, how much time you put on it, how many clubs you are, and so on.
Thank you.
I will thank you very much, Pat, for coming and answering now. And we will now close the question and answers. And after the meeting, we can have as usual, we have a chat. And you can still ask some other questions for each of us if you want.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think Roberto had one in queue.
Roberto, you wanted to speak? Can you unmute? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Pat. My question is, you told that Toastmasters education program is a self-paced program. So some members took it rather easy. Why you are pushing them with only 2-year coexistence parallel period? Wouldn't it be fairer to set a 3 years deadline for the old program?
Thank you for that question, Roberto. The reality is that you have to put a mark. And it is 3 years from when we started rolling it out in District 57 until it's finished. And so we just felt that discretionary, we have to, if we put it 3, then somebody says it's 4. The other strain is that, to maintain 2 education programs at the same time is a huge piece of work. So it's not like it just happens. Somebody has to monitor it all. There's 2 lines in the clubs that have to be maintained. It becomes quite, there's a responsibility all the way down through the organization, not just at World Headquarters, but down in the clubs to monitor and manage it. So, and the reality is that the turnover of membership is rapid, and so 2 years of brand new members into a club is a lot of people into Pathways. So we need people to get over into Pathways. So,
thank you very much, Pat. Oladele from Nigeria.
Yes, yes, Julie, thank you very kindly.
Can we see you or not?
I'm not on video today, I apologize, but can you hear me clearly?
Yes, please, go forward with your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pat, for your session today. It's quite refreshing to be able to speak with you directly as the one who coordinated the entire program. I've been privileged to be following you at the internationals, but it's glad to speak with you. My question is, I understand from being an ambassador and a guide that if you belong to more than one club, you have access to 2 paths for free. I belong to a brick and mortar club here in Nigeria, Eagle Toastmasters Club, the Premier Club, and also Firebirds Collective. But it's not expressly spelled out how one will access the second path. I already have one path now. My second club, which is Firebirds Collective, has rolled out. So I need to know, how do I access my second path for free, please?
well, that's a great question, and I wish I had an answer for you. I am not the expert on the rollout and accessing it, so I can't answer your question. But
we have so many pathway guides here, Pat. They're all putting their hands up, me too, about how to answer this. Belinda, do you want to take it?
Sure. So Oladele, basically to access your second path, you just need to email membership and let them know. And they will sign you up. Headquarters actually has to sign you up for the second path.
Yeah, there is supply orders. It's called supply orders.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. It's supply orders.
Not members.
And what I'd recommend, and I found to be very successful, is you send the email within the 30 days of selecting the path to supplyorders@toastmasters.com. Include your membership number and which path you want them to choose. It may take a while. If you're in the US, call the number. If you're not in the US, in the right time zone, use the chat to follow up if you're really keen to get started. But you can still continue with level 1 projects, and they will carry over to the correction of the path. It's a great question.
thanks for that answer.
Thank you, everybody, for the responses. I appreciate it.
Kelly?
Yes, can you hear? Okay, thank you, Pat, for the wonderful information sharing. I have a detailed question. For the traditional educational tracks, we have the functional roles we still have right now, like counter, grammarian, timer. I'm just curious about how these roles will be incorporated into the new pathway. Because I didn't see any like roles introduction in the new pathways, and I don't know whether it counts for credit or not. So this is my question. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, I can't answer that question directly because I haven't been through all the paths to know all the details of all the paths. And what I did see was like a year and a half ago. So I've had a lot of things go through my brain since then. But one of the things that happened when we created Pathways is we didn't worry about taking each component that is currently in the path, in the traditional program, and make it look the same way in the new, take the old elements and make them look the same in Pathways. So there may be the process of that, but it wouldn't look the same. And when we took leadership and communication and put them together, and some of the things are really not leadership. Timing a meeting is debatable whether that's a leadership development opportunity. It's more a listening and paying attention opportunity, which I guess could be stretched to leadership, but so you might not find a direct correlation for a lot of things.
Kelly, just to answer you, Toastmasters just published now that they translated Toastmaster wear many hats in many languages. All the language pathway exists, and you can download it free from Toastmaster International, and you have the description of all the roles. That is in short. I could answer you longer. Yeah, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Julie. And good morning or good evening, Pat. I'm kicking myself talking about timing. I was thinking UTC, so I missed your talk. But I'm so happy that I have a chance to ask this question. I'm an online pathways guide, meaning that I've been visiting undistricted clubs. And some of those who are already getting close to DTM have this question. It's kind of, it's a gray area, I suppose. Undistricted clubs do not require district service, obviously, because they have no district. What's going to happen if during the transition period before 2020, the clubs, like for example, Eastern Africa, which is already a territorial council, they become a district? What's going to happen to their DTM requirement of no district service?
That's a very good question for World Headquarters.